It was a romantic hideaway, in an undisclosed location in Dallas, where Jay and I's forbidden love can blossom. Yeah, it is. It's Brokeback Fantasy, is what it is.
Brokeback Fantasy.
Yeah.
Jay Stab says, Connor, thank God you're back. I had nightmares of Jay and Matthew's Italian bistro date.
We were this close to Lady in the Tramp style sharing one piece.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That was the second part of the comment that I left out.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Another romantic evening with Matthew Berry and myself, Jake Croucher. And Jake Gyllenhaal, he drinks for free.
He does drink for free, as does Heath Ledger. We couldn't fit them both on
We had
the
to
sign.
choose one, so the Australian got the shaft, Jake Gyllenhaal. I once went into a barber in Melbourne, Matthew, and asked
I would just like to say, hang on. So Dungeon Dragon says, I got called in HR for watching Brokeback Fantasy the past few days. I don't blame you. But just so you know, Dungeon Dragon, on behalf of you
Degen
Dragon. Sorry, it's hard to read on the screen. But Degen Dragon, as a favor to you and your career and producer Steven's career, I would just like to point out that while talking about Brokeback Mountain, Brokeback Fantasy, Jay Croucher said, you can rewind the tape, watch this. Jay Croucher says, yes, of course, the Australian got the shaft. And I let that slide. I didn't say anything. I didn't acknowledge it. Do you understand? At some point, when you get a layup there, you know what? And you know what I did? I just dribbled it back out. Let's reset.
Yep. Start the offense again.
Exactly
Top of the
right.
key.
Yeah.
No need to lay that one in. Jake Gyllenhaal, he drinks for free. One of the great actors of our times. I was trying to say before we went into the shaft tangent. I did go into a barber once and I asked for, can you please give me the Jake Gyllenhaal Detective Loki haircut from Prisoners? They didn't do a good job, and I never asked for it again. But Jake Gyllenhaal.
Did they know what it was?
I showed them a picture. It's pretty hard to do, to be fair. There's lots of little strands going on. We're going to talk about love-hate today.
I can't relate to that at all.
No, You got more the jarhead look.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. When I go into the barber, I'm just basically like, just do me a favor. Like I got a few stragglers on here hanging on for dear life. Just leave them be. Let them be. Just do me a favor. Just let them be.
You got to bite the bullet. You got to, you just got to move on.
My friend. Tim Hasselbeck, that I worked with for many years at ESPN, who is bald, him and his brother Matt, both bald. But he is just, we talked about this one day on air where he just said, listen, wise man once said to me, you got to fire them before they quit on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want the hair and we're going to score. To paraphrase the brothers. All right, we're going to talk about Rams-Niners, Thursday Night Football preview later in the show. But first, we're going to start with love-hate.
It's love-hate day.
Yeah, we're going to begin with the running backs, and we're going to start with Quinshon Judkins. And we talked about Quinshon Judkins a bit over a month ago on August 15th.
This is someone that when he was a freshman and got to Ole Miss was the guy, and was one of the most impressive freshmen we have seen in a long time at that position in college football. There's really no history of Quinshon Judkins ever being somewhere and just not being that dude right away. So if the Browns, there's no getting him up to speed. He's a pretty pro-ready prospect. It's just a matter of, do they want to be slow ramping him up in terms of conditioning and things like that. But if you're asking me if he's a starting running back by October, I say absolutely yes.
Yeah, so good job there. Connor Rogers was very high on Quinshon Judkins. You were very high on Quinshon Judkins as well, which is why I was allowed to draft him in round 12 of our league draft, but that's okay. He comes in at running back 11, Matthew, before his Europe matchup against the Vikings.
He's made the love list because the usage has been there, and he's looked great doing it. He's had 79% of the Browns' running back rushes since returning in week 2. Over the past 2 games, just 44 touches. This massive workload. And teams, running backs that get at least 15 or more rush attempts against those Vikings, they're averaging almost 19 fantasy points per game. So the Vikings, bottom 10 in rush yards allowed to opposing running backs. Quinshon Judkins, in Dylan Gabriel's first start, should have a heavy workload against the Vikings. He makes the love list right here. No Connor Rogers today, Jay Crouchers. He's still consoling himself about the Mets.
Another season-ending loss to the Marlins to blow a playoff spot. The third time that has happened in the past 20 years, specifically to the Miami Marlins, which is a tough scene. Not as tough as a scene for Quinshon Judkins. I think the fact that they were willing to give him such a heavy workload so soon is a huge indicator. It's not an amazing matchup against the Vikings, but at the same time, Kenneth Gainwell ran on on this team.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's not the most frightening run defense in terms of personnel, and you expect it to be close enough that they won't lose game script.
He produced against the Packers.
Yep.
You can't tell me the Vikings are better than I mean, Judkins is there, and I do think he gets a heavy workload again, given the fact that it is the rookie's first start, Dylan Gabriel. So they're going to want to lean on the run. This is a home game. They're in Cleveland. So, yeah, I'm as a top 12 play this week. Quinshon Judkins makes the love list. Another guy that makes the love list. A little bit closer to my age. But Alvin Kamara still getting it done. It's mostly about the matchup here. I know that the passing game work hasn't been there for Kamara the way we would have hoped this year. He hasn't been the PPR cheat code that we've seen in previous years. That role seems to have gone more to Chris Olave this year. But he plays the New York Giants. You had me at New York Giants, Jay. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, right? Kamara has at least 19 touches in 3 straight games. And only one team in the NFL gives up a higher yards per carry than the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, the Saints opened as favorites, as 1.5-point favorites, and then they got bet some more, up to 2.5-point favorites. I think the Saints, I don't think they're a great team by any stretch, but I do think they're a competent team. And I think that with the Giants, the issues that they have in terms of just the receiver room at the moment, Jaxson only making his 2nd start, I do think that the Saints, who have been close in 3 of their 4 games, will be able to keep it close enough for the run script to kick in and for Kamara to start getting into the end zone a little bit more. Question from Dylan Santana, 651. Should I start Judkins or Woody at one name now for Woody, like his Brazilian soccer player, Ronaldinho? I'm worried about Judkins being at a Europe game against the Vikings rush defense, while Woody is going against a pretty soft rush defense in Baltimore. I get that, but I just think that the guarantee or relative guarantee of workload for Judkins gives him the edge. Yeah,
we like Woody Marks quite a bit here. Everyone likes, it's interesting that you talk about Woody going against that soft run defense. But ultimately, while I do think Woody will be able to penetrate that soft defense.
That soft front.
Yeah, that soft front is better. I'm going with Quinshon Judkins here. I don't think I'm not worried about the Vikings run defense. Judkins has performed as well. We saw it from the clip from Connor. He's always been the best guy on the field. And so with the legal issues at least paused for a moment as that gets worked out, he's on the field. He's getting a big workload. Judkins would be my answer there as well. Back to Alvin Kamara against the Giants. It's a top 12 play this week. He's an RB1. Low-end RB1, but still an RB1.
You worried about Kendre Miller in the short to medium term?
No, I think they'll spell him with Kendre Miller. I do think Kendre Miller is an important person to roster. As we've seen it, just this week with all the injuries and, now Trey Benson is going to miss some time. Alvin Kamara, there's 2 scenarios actually 3, for Kendre Miller to get more playing time. Number 1, he just earns it. He's looked great. He looked kind of shot out of a cannon for an offense that needs a spark. Kendre Miller has provided that. There's also a chance that the Saints, who are, season has not gone the way that the Saints or Jay Croucher would have hoped for New Orleans, given the amount of money you've bet on them. There's a chance that Kamara could be on the move and go to another team. It would just make sense given where the Saints are and where Kamara is in his career. And then finally, of course, there's always a chance that Kamara gets hurt. He has dealt with injuries throughout his career. So Kendre Miller, I do think, is an interesting guy. But no, do I think Kendre Miller cuts into Kamara's workload to an extent that we would care, that we would consider not starting him? I don't. Again, 19 or more touches in 3 straight games for Alvin Kamara.
Yep. You mentioned Quinshon Judkins was able to run on the Packers. Another guy who was Javonte Williams, who now I add him to the love list because he gets this very favorable matchup against the Jets defense. Hasn't been able to stop the run in 2 years. The Cowboys are 3-point favorites at the Meadowlands. And I think that this Cowboys offense, I think we just need to view it as an elite top-tier NFL offense. I think Dak Prescott has played as well as any player in the NFL through the first month. Javonte Williams is a beneficiary of that because he's getting in scoring position. And now he gets another soft Jets front. And I think that he will be able to get into the end zone. And there's just no real concerns about anyone else in the Dallas backfield taking work from him.
I completely agree. We always say this fantasy success comes from 2 things, opportunity and talent. The opportunity for Javonte Williams is massive, and I think there's still a little bit of question around the talent, but he's looked better this year. Javonte Williams has looked better against the Packers last week. So I like the call on Javonte Williams making your love list this week.
Yep. Another guy that we'll talk about perhaps a bit later in the Thursday night preview, but Kyren Williams, who it's been a bit of an uneven year for Kyren. Like Puka Nacua has just gobbled up so much of the oxygen on that offense, DeVonta Adams as well. But I think Kyren will get right against the Niners run defense that certainly is going to suffer from the absence of Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa, his absence is just catastrophic for that defense overall. Everything kind of emanated from Bosa's presence. But the Niners...
And it's a short week.
A short week. Niners just got lit up by Travis Etienne. And I think that the Rams opened as 3.5-point favorites up to 6.5 because of all the Niners injury issues. I suspect they'll have game script. Blake Corum is a little bit concerning, but at the same time, expecting that Kyren will get at least 2/3 of the work there. Question from Alex Henderson, 321. Is Kyren for Ladd a bad dynasty trade? I need receivers and have deep running backs.
I don't think it is. I always prefer, in dynasty, wide receivers over running backs, just for the shelf life of those particular players. And I understand the question because of right now, Kyren's been fine and McConkey's been bad, but I'm not worried about the long-term prospects of Keenan Allen taking work away from Ladd McConkey. I am worried about Kyren Williams continuing to come on. So I actually don't think it's a bad trade. I think it's a good trade.
Yep.
I would prefer in dynasty. Again, it sort of depends on your goals because slow start for McConkey and Kyren's going to be fine. But just without knowing your team context, are you going for it or you're rebuilding this year? By the way, in dynasty, that's all you can do. You either need to always be, this is a year I'm going for it or this is a year I'm rebuilding. There's nothing worse than being like a fifth-place dynasty team.
Yep.
Like if you're middle in the pack, you're not winning and you need to be rebuilding, even if it seems weird. But I made the playoffs last year. Yeah, but if you're not there, if you can't get all the way there, rebuild.
Yep.
But anyway, so I prefer McConkey to Kyren long-term in dynasty.
Yeah. Ultimately, with Ladd McConkey, it's been a rough 4 weeks, but he's still tethered to Justin Herbert as his quarterback. He's a high draft pick. He played it at an absolutely elite level last year, so I think it's too early to be sounding the alarm too much on Ladd McConkey. Let's get to some others receiving votes, headlined by David Montgomery, who has had a pretty solid start to the season, highlighted by that epic game against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, last week, obviously a tough day at the office for Montgomery, but things are going to get a lot better this week at Cincinnati. Over the past 3 games, the Bengals allowing 151 rushing yards and 5.4 yards per carry to running backs. Lions are a 10-point favorite right now. We expect them to be able to run, but Gibbs and Montgomery are both top 20 plays for me this week. Obviously, you're starting Gibbs, but I'm back in on Monty. How about Woody Marks, who we just talked about? He's my running back 20, 86 utilization score in week 4. That was 12th best among all running backs. No team has allowed more fantasy points to opposing running backs than the Baltimore Ravens, than that soft Ravens front that Woody could easily penetrate. And then how about Isaiah Davis? We talked about this with Connor Rogers a couple of days ago after the Monday night game. We talked about it on Tuesday. But with Braylon Allen on IR with the MCL sprain, Isaiah Davis actually it's him and Breece Hall. And it was, believe it or not, it was not Breece Hall, but Isaiah Davis, who led the Jets last year in fantasy points per touch. In other words, he didn't get a ton of touches, but just when this kid touches the ball, good things happen. They like him there in New York. It's really just him and Breece Hall. This is an offense that we know with Justin Fields under center wants to run the ball and be effective. So I think Isaiah Davis, they don't want Breece Hall at the goal line. No. So when they get in close, it's either going to be a rushing attempt by Justin Fields or it's going to be Isaiah Davis. They play the Cowboys. And, we just saw that Josh Jacobs run all over the Cowboys. They get allowed the 6th most fantasy points opposing running backs. Just if you're desperate, I'm at running back 37. Let's not get crazy. But, if you're in a deep league, you're stuck because of buys, I do think he could potentially be a viable flex in a 12-team or deeper league.
Yep. Question from Simple Jack. Hashtag FF Happy Hour. Should I trade Waddle and Pollard for Judkins and Woody Marks?
Yes.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair trade. It's hard to know, obviously, without your scoring size, anything like that. But Waddle gets an uptick without Tyreek Hill. Tajay Spears, the window for him to return has opened. But Pollard, I would argue Pollard's probably it's him and Woody Marks are sort of close. But I prefer Judkins to Pollard moving forward. It's a fair trade is what I would say. Yep. But if you need the running back depth versus Waddle, who's kind of goes as Tua goes.
The other thing with Waddle is that, he gets an uptick. Like, he's been the clear alleged wide receiver 2 in that offense, and he just hasn't really done anything for 2 years. He's dealt with a lot of health issues. So I'm not sure that Jalen Waddle is just all of a sudden going to be like 10 catches a game type of guy. So I think that Quinshon Judkins is the best player in that trade. He's got the highest upside, and I'm not sure the gap between Pollard and Woody Marks is anything at all. Tyjae Spears is going to come back and take touches away from Pollard as well.
Agreed.
Also with Isaiah Davis, agreed. This week, I think touchdown-dependent, desperation flex type of guy, but scope for him to be, if Breece Hall gets traded at some point, Breece Hall also an injury risk, then Isaiah Davis could be RB1 on a team that runs the ball more than any other in football.
1,000%.
Right, let's get to the hate list. Jordan Mason headlines it. Jordan Mason loved the usage without Aaron Jones, with him on IR, but gets perhaps the toughest matchup in football in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's the issue, right? 2.9 yards per carry to running backs. That is the lowest in the NFL. That's what the Browns give up, under 3 yards per carry to running backs. The only running back to rush for more than 43 yards against Cleveland is Jahmyr Gibbs. All due respect to Jordan Mason, he is not Jahmyr Gibbs. By the way, 36.5. That's the over-under in this game. That's the lowest on the Week 5 slate. So, yeah, Jordan Mason outside my top 20. You probably still have to use him as a flex, but like he's a touchdown-dependent flex. He's my running back 24, and that's in a week in which we've got 4 teams on a bye. And obviously there are other running backs that are banged up, like Trey Benson, and he's still yet 24.
Yep, just getting some pass game work taken away from him in that backfield as well. I'll throw out Chase Brown for the hate list.
Yeah, of course. My team. Yeah. Why not?
Yes.
It's easy to hate my team.
Yes, a proud member of Live at Noon on the Cock, Chase Brown. I think that even though they are double-digit dogs to the Lions and you expect him to get some pass-catching work out of the backfield in a trailing script, the issue is that to get those yards, to get garbage time yards, you still have to be able to get first downs to stay on the field. And I don't think that the Bengals are really going to do that. I think that the Lions could have 37 minutes time of possession in this game if they just run the ball down the Bengals' throat. I think that Jake Browning, it's been very disappointing these 2 weeks of Jake Browning. I understand it's been 2 tough defenses in Minnesota and Denver, but this offense just doesn't seem viable at all at the moment. And so Chase Brown, I just don't really know what the upside is unless they bring someone else in at quarterback.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, Maycock, M-A-I-K-O-K. I don't know how else to pronounce that. Maycock.
All right.
Anyway.
Full PPR.
Bench one. Yeah. Charbonnet, Woody Marks, Chase Brown, Travion Henderson. I know you hate Chase Brown here, but I feel like the answer has to be Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, I think it's Charbonnet who has seen Ken Walker really take over that backfield. I think Ken Walker's just the better running back, and they seem to understand that. I think a lot of Charbonnet's usage came either when Ken Walker was out or Ken Walker was coming back off of injury. Tough matchup as well against the Bucs run defense that whenever they
top 5 run defense so far this year.
Tough team to run on, so I think that he is the guy. Trayvon Henderson's a strange one, but higher upside, and also I'm not sure he has that much lower of a floor than Charbonnet either.
Right, you're basically hoping Charbonnet falls into the end zone, I feel like, there against Tampa Bay. Trayvon Henderson, yeah, to your point, there's more upside. Sort of depends on kind of what you need.
Yep. All right, let's jump to pass catches. Headlined by Nico Collins, who we heard from, talking about the Texans getting their swagger back in Week 4.
We needed this one just to get our confidence, get our swagger back, man. Happy everybody came out healthy, got the dub, front fans, man, division, man. No better feeling. And mindset would just come out and just be me. You know, not making a moment big than what it is. Never my number called, go make the play for the team. You know, same thing I've been doing, just one play at a time.
Nico who? Nico who?
Who? Oh, 12. Nah. It was fun. I respect 38 over there. It was fun. It was fun. Good matchup. But most importantly, we got that dub. That's all that mattered to me.
Some respectful fun at the expense of L'Jarius Sneed from Nico Collins. It was a tough start to the season for Nico, but trending in the right direction, and he gets about as good of a matchup as possible, Matthew, with this banged-up Baltimore defense.
Yeah, it's not just a soft front in Baltimore, but it's also a soft backside.
Right.
Yeah.
Soft all around.
Yeah, the secondary, it's just soft all around.
Like the Michelin Man.
Pretty much. It's a good call on that. Ravens have allowed the most receptions on deep passes this season. No team has allowed more, right? They've also, by the way, given up the second most touchdowns deep as well. So you think about Collins here, who's should get a massive target share, by the way. All 3 wide receivers that have seen at least a 22% target share against Baltimore this year have scored at least 17 fantasy points, and Nico Collins we expect very easily will get more than a 22% target share in a game in which the Texans are favored, but only by 1.5. So I don't think suddenly they're running the ball a lot in the second half. I do think Baltimore will be able to keep it close enough. They're going to take deep shots to Nico Collins. He's my wide receiver 3 this week. Normally a wide receiver 1, but I literally have him as a top 3 play this week. He makes the love list.
Yep, first 3 weeks for the Texans offense was exceedingly grim, but I think you do have to regress a bit to the fact that new offensive coordinator, remodeled offensive line, CJ Stroud getting more accustomed to having a bit more ownership of the line of scrimmage. So I do think there is some optimism that the talent can kind of bear out and this team can start trending in the right direction. I don't think it's going to be an elite offense because the offensive line is just so tough, and I don't think Stroud is like a top 8 guy like he looked like he might be, but still there is some upside. Cappy America question, trade Nico Collins for Marion Hampton.
I like that. I mean, look, I think it's a fair trade. I think if we redrafted today, Nico Collins still goes as a top 10 wide receiver. I think Amarian Hampton still goes, obviously, as a top 10 running back. So I think it's a fair trade. Again, depends on what you need. If you need more running back help, then yes. If Nico Collins was your only good wide receiver, I probably wouldn't. But I think rest of the season, again, Hampton's my ride or die. I'm not particularly objective here. I would prefer Hampton to Collins, but it's close.
Yep, I agree. I think I'd lean Hampton, just higher upside. I understand that the Joe Alt thing isn't ideal, but still Hampton was able to produce. He's shown that he's getting work in the pass game, and he's just completely uncontested in that backfield now. So I would lean Hampton as well, but
I think better chance to touch him. But again, it's super close right there. So just really about what you need.
Yep. All right, I just wanted to highlight Puka Nacua, who obviously is the best wide receiver in football at the moment. He's going to be number 1 in your rankings probably for the foreseeable. But I just want to highlight the gap between him and everyone else. He has set his receiving prop has been bouncing around from 95.5 to 96.5. For context, last week it was set at about 90.5, and then the second highest guy was like JSN at 80.5. So he is that far. He's like 15% ahead of the rest of the NFL. Like guys like when CeeDee Lamb is healthy, he's set in the high 70s. Jamar Chase, when he has Burrow, same, like low 80s. Like Puka Nacua, this could be a record-breaking type of season that, ironically, hasn't really been seen since his predecessor in the slot for LA, Cooper Kupp in 2021. So Puka Nacua, we spoke about this briefly on our date in Italy via Dallas, that Puka Nacua, if you could have one player in fantasy the rest of the way, it's probably him.
I was in a draft last night. I literally did a Guillotine League draft last night. You can always start a league any week you want in Guillotine League at guillotineleagues.com. And I had the number 2 overall pick. I took Puka.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who went 1? Bijan?
Saquon, Eagles fan.
Terrible pick.
Well, I agree with you. But whatever. Guy's an Eagles fan. What are you going to do? No, Bijan ended up going 3rd, even though he's on a bye this week, which is kind of dicey.
Bijan, by the way, is on pace for like the 2nd most scrimmage yards in NFL history. Feels like we don't talk about Bijan. Like Puka's having an amazing season. Jonathan Taylor's probably been the best pure runner, but Bijan Robinson is an absolute monster, and he should be a top 3 pick in the rest of the season outlook. Let's talk about Xavier Worthy, who there's a lot of uncertainty about Worthy coming into last week's matchup against Baltimore. He's wearing the shoulder harness. What's his usage going to be? Looked pretty good, pretty encouraging in that performance against the Ravens.
23% target share, 2 end zone targets as well. Average depth of target of 17 yards. They weren't afraid to take deep shots for him. They were looking for him when they got in close. He played a lot of snaps, a lot of shares. And now you get this Jacksonville Jaguars defense that's good against the run, but is still bottom 12 as a defense in terms of reception yards and points allowed to opposing wide receivers. So I do think Xavier Worthy has a nice game. I was a top 12 play this week. No pressure, Xavier Worthy, if you're watching, but I'm starting you against Connor Rogers, and I literally need you to have like a 50-point game.
That's probably not going to happen, but could get loose for a deep one. Do you think, in terms of trading Xavier Worthy or his value, what are you doing in regard to Rashee Rice coming back in a couple of weeks? Do you think now is the time to try and sell high on Xavier Worthy coming off a decent showing, or do you just ride it out because everyone knows that Rice is coming back?
I think you ride it out, to be perfectly honest. I don't know that we have any, like we've seen it with Kelsey, who's, like, I think Patrick Mahomes is good enough. And this offense has the potential to be good enough that it can support 2 fantasy-relevant wide receivers the way that the Rams do with Nacua and Adams. Not that I'm saying they're going to become Adams and Nacua, but they can't run the ball. And their defense isn't as good or as intimidating as his years past, so I think they'll be throwing more. Mahomes looks awesome and locked in.
Question from Mike Schubert. Trade Scatterboo for Xavier Worthy. Need a wide receiver after the Nabler went down.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a fair trade because both guys have a lot of volume right now. Scattaboo in a couple of weeks is going to get Tyrone Tracy back, who's going to cut into the workload. Xavier Worthy's going to get Rashee Rice in a couple of weeks back. So, yeah, I think that's actually a fairly fair trade. But if you need a wide receiver after Neighbors went down and you have some running back depth, I like that trade. It's a fair trade, is what I would say. It just depends on sort of what you need.
I think a lot of Scattaboo's games are going to look like the Chargers game, where it's a ton of volume, not a great deal of efficiency, and then you've got the Tyrone Tracy return looming over his potential usage.
He'll get some goal line work, though. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
And I do think Jaxson Dart being the new starting quarterback and his ability to run opens things up for Scattaboo. Again, mobile quarterbacks generally open up things for running backs.
Yep. Okay. I'll throw out Tetairoa McMillan for the love list. I think that T-Mac, it's been underwhelming is not the right word, but he hasn't had this huge explosion game yet. And the Panthers have been so inconsistent. Well, they've been consistently bad outside of the Falcons game, where I don't think T-Mac is getting a ton of attention, but this guy just gets a massive target share. He's awesome. And the Panthers are going to be in throw scripts constantly because they're just not very good. Like T-Mac last week, he was set, his receiving prop was the same as Ayomanor St. Brown. We just don't think about him that way at all. But because they have to throw so much, and because the Lions run so much, and because the Bryce Young is going to be playing from behind so much, he's just a guy who is going to, I think, average 65 receiving yards per game and have 5 to 6 catches, and then should get in the end zone more than he has to this point. So T-Mac is a guy I'd actually buy low on because I just don't think he's getting a ton of attention because he hasn't had the explosion game, but it's coming at some point soon.
Talent and opportunity. We know his talent. It's off the charts. He's got the opportunity. He's the only guy there. He's got a massive target share. The offensive struggle. They need to get it going, but I like the call, and I think there's a chance that they get it going this week as well.
Yep. Another guy who could get it going in a very favorable matchup is Sam LaPorta, who gets the Bengals, who might be the most favorable matchup in the league, particularly against tight ends.
They've given up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. And in fact, teams that face the Bengals average 10 tight end targets a game. 10 tight end targets a game. So it's just, the point is that whoever's the quarterback that's facing the Lions, they're seeing something in the defense that allows them to continually target their tight end. So LaPorta, who's, obviously a superstar, I'm as a top 5 play this week against Cincy.
Yep. The Lions are a strange team in terms of just their distribution of where all the yards go because they're awesome, and so they're leading all the time, and they love to run the ball with Gibbs and Montgomery, but they just play so fast, and their target share in the pass game is so streamlined to Ayomanor St. Brown, Sam LaPorta, and Jameson Williams to a lesser extent. So even though they run the ball a ton, Jared Goff every year is top 3 in passing yards. This team just gets a ton of volume because they always have the ball.
And they're in scoring position often. You know what I mean? And so it's one of the elite offenses in the NFL. And so I'm with you. I just sort of think that it's a pretty good matchup, and it's just in time for Sam LaPorta. Sam LaPorta has been bad this year. You know how I know? Because he's on my team in our league. Yeah, he's been brutal.
Yeah.
I passed up Tyler Warren for you. Sam LaPorta.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Tyler Warren, but
that's okay.
Yeah, but in this case, I try to do something different. It was dumb.
Yeah.
Should have picked up Tyler Warren in every league.
All right, let's go to others receiving votes. Headlined by friend of the show, Jakobi Meyers, the perennially one of the most underrated players in football.
I agree. He's had only one game this year below a 28% target share. Gets open, targets are earned. Jakobi Meyers has earned a lot of targets. Nice matchup against the Colts, by the way, as Indianapolis has allowed the 3rd most yards to the slot. Kenny Moore, their slot corner, their talented slot corner, he's still out for a couple of weeks. Jakobi Meyers, top 20 play for me this week. How about the guy he's facing that game, Michael Pittman, who has at least 24% target share in 3 out of 4 games so far this year. Raiders have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I feel like we've talked a lot. The Hunter Henry of this year, Elic Ayomanor, the rookie wide receiver for the Titans. I'm at wide receiver 35, but he's coming, and we talked about this with Connor the other day. The underlying usage for him is unbelievable. He leads the team in target share, in average depth of target, and end zone targets. They're looking for him often, they're looking for him deep, and they're looking for him when he gets in close. And so Calvin Ridley, who played only 54% of the snaps last week, hampered a little bit by injury. We don't know his status for Sunday, but either or, it feels like Ayomanor has taken over this receiver room. I'm at wide receiver 35, but you like the match with Arizona. He makes the love list. Others receiving votes. And how about 2 tight ends for you that we saw both play on Monday Night Football? Mason Taylor against the Cowboys. You had me at Dallas. Cowboys allowing the third highest catch rate to opposing tight ends. Every single week, Mason Taylor's target share has increased. Like, they need somebody opposite Garrett Wilson, and feels like Mason Taylor is the guy that they like. And then finally, Darren Waller, one of my favorite players in the NFL. If you know his story, he's an easy guy to root for. Came back on Monday night, catches the 2 touchdowns. Didn't play a ton of other snaps, like had only 4 targets. 3 of them he caught, 2 of them were touchdowns. That's unsustainable. But he was targeted on 40% of his routes in the season debut. And the Panthers have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So it's a good matchup here. And, and as Tyreek Hill is out for the year, they're looking for answers in Miami.
Yep. I feel like Darren Waller is going to have a lot of games where it's like 3 for 26 and a touchdown, which gets you to 11, 12 points.
That's right.
Which is handy enough. Want to hone in on a couple of these guys, starting with Elic Ayomanor, who is, as Calvin Ridley continues to go down and plummet, Ayomanor has to come up. And I think that when you're looking for things to really radically change after 4 weeks of the season, you want variance. And what creates variance? Youth. Like someone like the Arizona offense, the Arizona pass game, kind of just is what it is, I think, at this point. Like Kyler Murray, you're not going to see anything drastically different. With Cam Ward and Elic Ayomanor, whose sample in the NFL is 4 weeks, plenty can change. And I think it can only really get better for these guys. And even though Cam Ward hasn't been great, the efficiency hasn't really been there, I've seen enough in terms of the talent and what he can do to believe that he can really rise up the rest of the season, and Ayomanor be the primary beneficiary.
Yeah, could not agree more with that. It has to get better, because not only does it have to get better, it will get better.
Yeah.
Because either Cam Ward gets better, or they replace him, or Brian Callahan gets replaced as well. So the other thing that you like here, of course, is the Arizona Cardinals have a bottom 5 pass defense in the NFL. And so Ayomanor, who's had a long stretch here of tough defenses, the quarterback, the whole offense, I think it gets a little bit easier starting this week. Not saying any game in the NFL is easy, but
probably the easiest matchup he's had so far was against the Colts, and that's where he started to break loose a little bit. And speaking of those Colts, Jakobi Meyers, who gets the Colts this week, Xavier Howard might be the single most destructive player in the NFL right now. Xavier Howard is done. Yeah. He can't guard anyone. The Rams targeted him relentlessly, and if Jakobi Meyers is going to get matched up against Xavier Howard, then that is very good for Jakobi Meyers and big trouble for Xavier Howard, who was an elite cornerback at one point in the NFL, but just isn't there at the moment.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
Let's jump to the hate list. Yep. Headlined by a guy who's been very underwhelming this season relative to where he was drafted.
Dude.
That is DeVonta Smith, who plays the Broncos, Patrick Surtain and friends. He's yet to have a game with more than 60 receiving yards. This guy won the Heisman, Matthew, and he was a elite wide receiver option.
The Slim Reaper. And pretty good nickname.
They just, between whether it's him, whether it's Jalen Hurts, whether it's the passing offense, the scheme, just isn't happening for him at all so far this year.
He has yet to have a game with more than 60 yards, Jay, right? His utilization score from FantasyLife.com, 59. Yeah. There are 41 other wide receivers with a higher utilization score than DeVonta Smith. And again, the utilization score is not just about like, oh, how much did this guy play? It's about all the underlying metrics in terms of routes run, targets per route run, air yards created, et cetera, and it goes into one easy-to-understand number. 59 is not a good score for where you drafted DeVonta Smith, about where his talent is, where he could be. It's a bad score, and so you don't love him in general because he's really only had the one good game. But more importantly, you don't love it this week against Denver, as the Broncos have allowed the 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Now, some of that's skewed by the Cincinnati game, but still, not ideal.
Yep. The Eagles have played 8 halves this year, and for 7 of them, the passing game has just been atrocious. There's just no volume. Jalen hasn't completed a pass in the second half against Tampa.
He was 0 for 8.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous.
Minus -1 yard of offense.
Yeah, this is now a 4-game sample, and there is continuity from last year. This team should just be better in the air at this point, but they just haven't been. And I'm not convinced. I think it has to get better than it's been, but I'm not convinced that they start to resemble the pass game of the past couple years, where even though they were run heavy last year, they would still take deep shots, and A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith would still produce relatively, but it's very bleak at the moment with the Eagles through the air.
They'll figure it out.
It's crazy this team is 4-0. but they are. But a tough matchup against the Broncos. You probably suspect that Surtain sees more A.J. Brown than DeVonta Smith, but still, the Eagles need to show that they can throw on anyone at the moment. Because, I mean, think about what just Jordan Love did to Dallas's defense. Think about what Russell Wilson did to the Cowboys' defense through the air in Week 2, and think about what Jalen Hurts and the Eagles couldn't do to them in Week 1. Another tough defensive matchup faces Jordan Addison, who plays the Cleveland Browns in the Europe matchup. Jordan Addison, who got loose for a big gain with Carson Wentz at quarterback last week. And I don't mind the outlook of Jordan Addison going forward, but I think Cleveland's defense, I think they may actually stand alone as the best defense in the NFL right now. And I don't think that Carson Wentz dropping back 40 times against Myles Garrett and friends is going to be a great recipe for Jordan Addison producing a big game. The Vikings also field goal favorites in this one. Don't expect that they're going to be in as much of a throw script as they were in that kind of crazy game against the Steelers last week. So Jordan Addison, I think you probably can do better in a flex spot.
I think you can. I mean, especially, I just don't want you chasing the points from last week. I actually think Jordan Addison's a pretty good NFL wide receiver.
Sure.
Like, he looks good, looks the part. I get the concern with the matchup this week as well, and, only the second game back. But I would not drop him. If I had Jordan Addison, I would hang on to him and wait till a better spot where you feel more comfortable starting him. But, I mean, I think Addison almost had a monster day. He got tackled to the 1 yard line. It was a pretty good day. Actually, it was almost a monster day.
Yep. Okay, we are going to hit our first break. But first, it's Big Ten Saturday night. Number 1 team in the country looks to defend home turf as Ohio State welcomes the Golden Gophers to the Shoe on Saturday. Tune in to the action on NBC and Peacock. Here comes Saturday night, presented by Discover. Love Hate continues after the break. Touch on the quarterbacks.
I told the guys after the game, I'm not losing break. We have a 13 game guaranteed left. So we've been going to run here and just keep building, keep working, and just keep going. It's early in the season. It's 4 games, and of course we want a better start than that. But like I said, if we keep working, we know the team that we can beat.
That was Justin Fields. Keeping the Faith, which is a pretty bad movie starring David Duchovny, I think, 25 years ago. Anyway, Justin Fields hasn't been great from a real-life perspective in terms of getting W's, but there is no bigger delta in fantasy versus real life in terms of value provided than Justin Fields, and he comes in as number 2 in your rankings, Matthew, with a very favorable matchup against the Cowboys.
He was awful for 3 quarters against Miami and still finished with 27 fantasy points. I mean, it's literally again, you don't have to watch the games. You can just enjoy the points. And speaking of games and enjoying points, every quarterback that's faced the Dallas Cowboys this year, Jay, has scored at least 24 fantasy points, right? Including Jordan Love. Last week, you and I canoodling in front of the TV watching that. A lot of fun in Dallas. It was very romantic.
Magical city.
Yes, very magical city. The Lone Star State. But here's the thing. So every quarterback that's faced the Dallas Cowboys has scored at least 24 fantasy points. Well, guess who faces them this week? It is Justin Fields. Cowboys allowing 27.4 points per game to opposing quarterbacks as well. 29-27. Those are the 2-point totals Fields has had in his 2 completed games so far this season. You get the floor right there. Mason Taylor starting to emerge. By the way, Breece Hall with the injury to Braylon Allen. Breece Hall, who's better used as a pass-catching running back than he is up the middle, and Isaiah Davis. So I think they'll go a little bit more pass-happy here, but just, I don't know, the matchup and Fields' floor with his legs, he's a top 2 quarterback from this week.
Yep, total approaching 50 in that game as well. So you'd expect that he's going to be in a script where he has to drop back and they have to keep throwing, or in his case, running the ball while he drops back. Question from Michael Kelly. Concerns with having players on teams at 0-4. Fields, Garrett Wilson with the New York Jets teams, just with bad vibes not to invest in. I think with the Jets, Garrett Wilson's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Justin Fields as well. I mean, I don't think that they're really going to bench him for Tyrod Taylor necessarily. No. I think he's got a little bit of a leash there, so I wouldn't be so concerned. And also, with the Jets, Breece Hall is the guy most likely to get traded, I would say, of the guys that we care about from a fantasy perspective. Is Breece Hall getting traded? Is that really that much worse of a situation where he goes to? He's probably going to go to a team like the Chiefs or the Bears, where he becomes a legit RB1 for them.
Yeah, it sort of depends on kind of your situation and what team we're talking about here. Alvin Kamara, could I be concerned? Sure, a little bit, right? On the Saints, just because he could get moved, and he could move to a situation where he's not getting as much volume. Like, I'm making it up, but if he goes to Kansas City, where now he's the head of a committee, but he's still in a committee where they've got a lot of the mouths to feed. So, yeah, maybe, but it's all just sort of like, what are you going to do? I'm more concerned with older players on 0-4 teams where they just sort of want to shut it down, than I am with a player like Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall or Justin Fields.
Yep, agreed. The Jets better win this game because if they don't, Connor Rogers is just a broken man at the moment. Between the Mets blowing...
More of a broken man.
Yeah. Between the Mets blowing the playoffs without those 2 out of 3 losses to the Marlins, now the Jets are 0-4, Rangers missing the playoffs. It's not good for Connor Rogers.
His job requires him to work with me every day.
Yes. He's just now, he used to get upset when the Jets lose, like he's sad when the Zach Wilson era. Now he's just angry. Now he's just scorched earth on the New York Jets. So hopefully they can get a win.
You hate to see a youngin get so bitter so early. It took me a while before I got to that level of bitter, but Connor is right there.
Indeed. One of the reasons why Fields is such a good play this week is that he goes against an offense that is going to light up his defense and keep him in a drop-back script. And he's facing Dak Prescott, who I think, Matthew, if I had an MVP vote, and I strangely don't have an official MVP vote, but if I did, through 4 weeks of the season, I would give that vote to Dak Prescott. I think he has played the quarterback position at as high, if not higher level than anyone else in the game. Think about and his stats are so deflated because he's gotten screwed by his receivers. CeeDee Lamb in week 1 with all those drops against the Eagles. He did everything humanly possible against the Giants, got the win in week 2. And then against the Packers, he played basically close to a perfect game and had everything from just on-time throws. He got the ball out in less than 2.7 seconds per drop back in terms of the highlight throws down the field. The throw to Jalen Tolbert's one of the best throws I've ever seen in my life in person. So Dak Prescott playing at an MVP level, and now he gets a defense that you don't have to play at an MVP level against to light up with the Jets. They just don't have anything at the moment. And they're just such a far departure from the elite defense that they were a couple of years ago against Robert Saleh. So Dak Prescott, as Tej says, Dak has been a top 5 quarterback right now based on play. Great call, Evil J. Thank you, Tej.
Thank you, Tej. Look, trying to get into the power rankings. I get that.
It's one of the great snubs of our times. I don't really understand.
Tej, you were on others receiving votes, make no mistake, but we'll see if you can sneak in to the top 10 later this week.
And you crack the top 10. Yeah, I think with Dak, there was some concerns. Like, CeeDee Lamb's out. How much is Dak a product of CeeDee? And turns out he's completely fine. He just give the ball to Javonte Turpin and Jalen Tolbert, in addition, obviously, to George Pickens. So Dak Prescott, I think he's just, until he stops playing at this level, he's like a borderline QB1 for fantasy.
Well, because it's not just him playing at this elite level. It's also the defense. Yeah. He's having to, right? And so that's the thing. I mean, like, we thought the Packers were going to roll him last week, and they obviously didn't. And so I'm with you. I've never been the biggest Dak fan, but Dak is playing unbelievably well this year. Credit to him and the entire Cowboys staff. So I like that call as a love. I'm going to turn to a guy that another guy that's facing a quarterback that's going to keep him in game script. So Drake Maye is at Buffalo this week. That's the Sunday night game right here on NBC and Peacock. Of course, I'm a company man. So, we expect Buffalo to have no issue here. 50, it's an over-under of 50. So it's the highest game total in week 5. So we expect a lot of offense both ways. No team in the NFL has allowed more rushing yards or more yards per carry, a higher yards per carry to opposing quarterbacks than the Buffalo Bills. So that is an area you can attack. Obviously, May gets points with his feet, with his arms as well. He's been a top 8 fantasy quarterback each of the last 3 weeks. You see it there on your screen, 23, 19, 26.3. He's been pretty good. He's been pretty good through the last 3 weeks. And now, again, the Buffalo Bills, who, yes, they have a very good defense, but they're also 7.5-point underdogs. So yeah, it's should be good.
Unbelievable. I think that the other thing too is that Drake Maye, just his real life level of football play has increased substantially. Now he's in this game against Buffalo. Well, I was a little bit surprised that the Patriots in this one, they're only 7.5. It's around 8-point dogs. Line has been moving around a bit. So the market believes in the Patriots offense, in Drake Maye, taking a serious leap. I also think it really helps Drake Maye that Stephon Diggs last week against the Panthers.
He looked like Stephon Diggs
again. He looks a little bit like Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And if Drake Maye is going to have a legit wide receiver one, because that was the concern, is he didn't have the weapons, but with the level that he's playing at, with the help that he can get from Diggs going forward. And also,
Henry's looking good, and,
he's got some actual weapons. We love Boutte. We've always loved Boutte.
Yeah, everyone
we love
loves
Boutte
Boutte.
as the number 2 option, more so than the number 1.
I hadn't really tried Boutte in a significant way this year until recently, but I have, and I've developed a taste for it.
Yes, yeah, as we should. And so now against the Buffalo defense, the Bills are great. The Bills are arguably the best team in football. I think they're certainly the best team in the AFC right now, but it's not a particularly imposing defense. So like Tua kind of like that. Even Spencer Rattler moved the ball and was inches away from getting to putting up, almost 25 points against Buffalo. So I think that Drake Maye will have a big game this week. Another guy I think is going to have a big game.
I hope you're right. I'm at QB7, and I need him against Connor Rodgers, so we will see what happens there.
Yep. Another guy who's I think he's going to have a big game this week is Daniel Jones.
Of your Colts. You're a Colts man.
Yeah, my beloved Colts, for the shoe, as they say. Daniel Jones, it came down to, like for the shoe? Hashtag
no,
for
that's literally their hashtag. That is literally their hashtag.
Yeah, it's like tighten up.
I'm laughing at you. I'm laughing at you using it. But yes, that is, Colt up.
Yes, no, I love the Indianapolis Colts. I love Colts football. Love AFC South football. And I think that Daniel Jones is going to. You don't like AFC South football?
No, I'm just
Who doesn't
laughing
love
at
AFC
you.
South? As a young boy in Australia, in Melbourne, I grew up loving AFC South football.
Of course you did.
I grew up watching David Garrard light up Matt Schaub and the Texans. Great division. So Daniel Jones, he came back down to earth against the Rams. As felt perhaps a little bit inevitable. And the deep ball wasn't really working for him, but he was missing his primary deep threat in Alec Pierce. I still believe in the offense. Think about everything that went wrong for the Colts in that game. A.D. Mitchell's walking into the end zone, fumbles it out the back. They have all the turnovers. Puka Nacua goes absolutely berserk. And really, they should have won that game against the Rams. I think this is just a legitimately very good team. I think it's a very good infrastructure that Shane Steichen is providing with his play calling, with a really solid offensive line. And the team is just loaded in weapons. They've got Jonathan Taylor, who is taking a load off of Daniel Jones with all of the gravity that he provides. And then between Pittman and Tyler Warren and Josh Downs and A.D. Mitchell, if he's not making insane brain farts, and Alec Pierce, I just think that this is set up for Daniel Jones to continue to thrive, and he gets this matchup against the Raiders, whose secondary has been deplorable this year. The cornerbacks aren't getting any better, so I think that Daniel Jones, he should return to the guy that we saw statistically through the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, I'm as a top 10 play. We talked about him yesterday on the show. He's a keep it open for me. He's a top 10 play for me. I like the call on Danny Dimes, who has been better at home this year than he has been on the road. He's in the friendly confines of Lucas Oil Stadium. A couple other quarterbacks in the other receiving votes category. How about Jared Goff at home against Cincinnati? You had me at the Bengals. I'm sorry, he's not at home. He's on the road at Cincinnati, but still, bottom 3 pass defense for the Bengals. 3 of the 4 quarterbacks to face Cincy have thrown for at least 270 yards. Goff looks dialed in. How about Jaxson Dart? It wasn't always pretty last week, but he finished as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I'm at QB 14 against the Saints. New Orleans allowing over 20 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. That's 5th most in the NFL. And he had 10 rushing attempts last week for Dart. They let him use his legs, including 2 goal-to-go rushing attempts as well. Jaxson Dart is a mid-tier QB2 with upside for more.
Indeed. All right, let's jump to the hate list. Another man with great hair, much like Jaxson Dart, is Trevor Lawrence, but hasn't been great quarterback play to match his hair. So far, been very underwhelming for T-Law, despite the great Jag start.
The Trevler.
Record, and now he gets a Kansas City defense that is improving. Not the dominant unit that was a couple years ago, but still a tough matchup for Trevor. Yeah,
over the last 3 games, they've allowed only 1 passing touchdown, the Kansas City Chiefs. He just doesn't look good. If you've won so far this week with this year with Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback, you're doing it despite him, not because of him as well. He's not running the way we thought he would. Career low 8 rushing yards per game. He's also not getting into crazy throw mode because, candidly, the Jaguars' defense is a lot better than we thought. Travis Hunter, it's been in and out. Brian Thomas Jr. obviously seems to have the yips for some reason. They're just, their best receiver right now is Brenton Strange, their tight end. Like, what is going on? Even in a week with 4 teams on a bye, I have Trevor Lawrence as barely a top 20 play. He's my QB 19. The over-under is 46.5 in this game. I think I'd take the under here.
Yep. I agree.
Trevor Lawrence, the Traveler, makes the hate list in week number 5.
Yep. Statement from Jonathan Medici 7. For the love of fantasy, can we please just say Trevor Lawrence isn't good?
He isn't. Right now, he isn't.
Yeah. He's like Kyler Murray East, basically.
He's like Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is good now, but I'm just saying,
slandered the Daniel Jones, the superior quarterback in the aforementioned grade AFC South.
He's just,
He's just a guy at this point. It's 4 weeks in a new system. Maybe it'll get better, but I'm not counting on it at this point. A guy who has been great this year, but I'm adding to the hate list this week because of the matchup, is the Bake Show, Baker Mayfield, friend of the show, who is doing everything that he can. But I think now the injuries have just reached critical mass for the Bucs. They're missing a big chunk of their offensive line. They're missing Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's still getting ramped up. Emeka Egbuka's banged up. Bucky Irving, health concerns as well. And now the Seahawks defense might be a top 2, top 3 unit in football. The Seahawks here, this is the 3-point favorites in this one. So the market is saying the Seahawks are just better than the Bucs on neutral field at the moment because of Tampa's injuries. So a little bit worried about Baker Mayfield in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We like the rushing of Baker, but Seattle's legit, right?
Yeah.
They're a top 2 scoring defense in the NFL, and it's 44.5 over under here. I think Baker ultimately be fine, but just hard to see him having one of those big kind of games that Baker always has. I understand the hate list is always about. It's not that they're not startable. It's just lowering or. Love lists are people that exceed expectations. Hate lists are people that we think fall short of expectations. Our expectations for Baker are very high.
Yep.
We think he falls short this week. I like the call.
Feels like a kind of 2 touchdown, 2 interception type game for Baker.
All right. 240 yards, 230, something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Matthew loves Drake Maye this week, but will the Patriots play spoiler in Orchard Park against Josh Allen and the undefeated Bills at home? Tune in Sunday Night Football this Sunday on NBC and Peacock. Our full preview of Thursday Night Football takes us home after the break. It's last call. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the Sportsbook app and use promo code FFHH when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown is yours.
All right. Thursday Night Football, last call. Take a look at some of the notable player props from 49ers at Rams. Puka Nacua, though, he's good to go, and he set at 96.5 receiving yards we spoke about earlier. Kyren Williams, 69.5 rushing yards. Perhaps he can get going too, but I'm going to go a little bit more niche for my best bet. I'm going to take Brian Robinson over 17.5 rushing yards. I don't think this workload for Christian McCaffrey is sustainable. No. I think particularly on a short week, in a tough matchup, I think that they give Brian Robinson, he should really just need 5 carries to go over this number. So B-Rob over 17.5 rushing.
I like that call. I've definitely heard that as well. Especially given the short week, Robinson's going to have a bigger role than usual this week. I like that call. I'm taking DeVonta Adams over 55.5. That Puka number is really high, but Adams at 55.5. He's been over this number in 3 straight games. So far this year, he has a 26% target share. So in a game in which we think the Rams will be able to move the ball against this banged-up Niners defense, give me DeVonta Adams over 55.5 receiving yards for my best bet for tonight. All right. That music you hear means it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We're back tomorrow with Dr. Denny Carter and Flexual Frustration. Connor Roger will be back as well. I'm on the way to Alabama. Roll Tide for Jay. I'm not a Connor. I'm Matthew. I'm all crazy. I'm usually saying Connor's name. Good Lord. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.